Queen Nixara sat alone in her massive throne room made of black stone. The room was so big that her voice would echo if she spoke too loudly. Strange blue lights danced across the walls, showing maps of distant stars and planets. She had 4 powerful arms, each one moving across different holographic displays that floated in the air around her. Her skin looked like living crystal, shifting between purple and silver as light hit it. When she was angry, it would glow bright, red. When she was sad, it turned a deep blue. Right now it was flickering between colors because her mind was troubled. For 3 hours, she had been looking at the same reports. Her scouts had found something interesting on the edge of known space. Humans. A small group of them had built a colony on a distant world. Most of her advisors thought this was just another weak species to conquer or ignore. But Nixara knew better. She touched a small device on her wrist, and suddenly the room filled with the voices of her military commanders. They appeared as ghostly blue figures around her throne. "Your Majesty," said General Vexthar, his scarred face serious, "the human settlement has fewer than 10,000 people. We could take control of their world in less than a day." "They have no weapons that could hurt our ships," added Admiral Kothara. "Their technology is at least 50 years behind ours." Nixara listened, but said nothing. Her advisors saw weakness, where she saw something else entirely. These humans reminded her of a memory she had carried for 30 long years, a memory that changed everything about how she ruled her empire. She waved her hand and the holographic commanders disappeared. Now she was alone again with her thoughts and the dancing lights of the star maps. 30 years ago, she was not a queen. She was just a scared young alien girl, crash-landed on a strange world. She was hurt, hungry, and hiding from creatures that wanted to eat her. Then a human child found her, a boy named Jiho, who could have run away screaming. Instead, he helped her. Jiho was small, maybe 7 years old, with dirt on his clothes and kindness in his eyes. He shared his food with her, even though he didn't have much. He brought her water when she was thirsty. He sat with her in the dark cave where she was hiding, making sure she wasn't alone. For 3 days, this human child protected her until her rescue ship finally arrived. That act of kindness from one small human changed her entire life. When she became queen, she remembered Jiho's lesson. Power wasn't just about being strong. True strength came from choosing to help others, even when they were different from you. Now her scouts had found humans again. Maybe, just maybe, one of them was connected to the boy who had saved her life all those years ago. She stood up from her throne, her 4 arms reaching toward different control panels. With quick movements, she activated her personal fleet. 20 of her best warships would accompany her on this journey, but this would not be a mission of conquest. "Prepare my flagship," she commanded her computer. "Set course for the human colony. Maximum speed." Her advisors would think she was crazy for traveling so far to investigate such a small settlement. They didn't understand that sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest changes. Sometimes a debt of gratitude can last for decades. As her ship prepared for the long journey through space, Queen Nixara looked one more time at the star maps. Somewhere out there, among those distant lights, might be the answer to a question that had followed her for 30 years. The memory hit Queen Nixara like a punch to the chest. She closed her 4 eyes and let herself drift back to that terrible day 30 years ago. She was only 8 years old then, traveling with her mother on a diplomatic mission to meet Earth's leaders for the first time. Their ship was supposed to be safe, protected by the best shields in the galaxy. But space pirates didn't care about diplomatic immunity. The attack came without warning. Explosions rocked their vessel as enemy ships surrounded them. Her mother shoved young Nixara into an escape pod just as the main ship started breaking apart. "Remember who you are," her mother had whispered, sealing the pod door. Those were the last words Nixara ever heard from her. The tiny escape pod tumbled through space like a broken toy. Warning lights flashed red as the damaged systems struggled to keep her alive. When it finally crashed on Earth's mining moon, the impact threw her small body against the metal walls. Purple blood dripped from cuts on her crystalline skin. Everything hurt. Her left arm was twisted at a strange angle. One of her legs wouldn't move properly. Worse than the pain was the fear. She was alone on an alien world, and she could hear scary sounds coming from the darkness outside her crashed pod. That's when she met him. Park Ji-ho was supposed to be in school that day. Instead, he was exploring the old mining tunnels where his father worked. He was 7 years old, small for his age, with messy black hair and curious eyes that seemed too big for his face. When he first saw Nixara crawling out of the smoking wreckage, he should have run away screaming. She looked like something from a nightmare. Her skin was cracked crystal. She had 4 arms and strange symbols glowed on her forehead. Purple blood covered her clothes, and she was making sounds he'd never heard before. But Ji-ho didn't run. Instead, he tilted his head to one side and asked, "Are you hurt?" Young Nixara couldn't understand his words, but she recognized the tone. It was gentle, concerned. She tried to stand up but fell down again, whimpering in pain. Ji-ho looked around, quickly, then made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He took off his school jacket and carefully wrapped it around her wounded arm. The fabric was too small, but it helped stop the bleeding. "Wait here," he said, holding up one finger. "I'll be right back." He ran home as fast as his little legs could carry him. His mother was at work and his father was deep in the mines. Ji-ho grabbed everything he could find: bandages from the medicine box, a bottle of water, some bread from the kitchen, and a flashlight. When he returned to the tunnels, Nixara was shivering in the cold. The moon's thin atmosphere made everything freezing once the sun went down. Ji-ho wrapped his spare blanket around her shoulders and sat down beside her. For the next 3 days, he became her guardian angel. He brought her food and water, changed her bandages, and never left her alone for long. When dangerous moon creatures came sniffing around their hiding spot, Ji-ho threw rocks at them until they went away. He couldn't speak her language, but he didn't need to. When she cried from pain, he would hum little songs his grandmother used to sing. When she was scared of the dark, he would keep his flashlight on all night. When she was hungry, he shared his lunch, even though it meant he would go without. On too. The 3rd day, bright lights appeared in the sky. Kethmori rescue ships had finally found the crash site. As alien soldiers rushed to help their lost princess, young Nixara looked back at the human boy who had saved her life. She never forgot his kindness. The warning sirens started blaring across New Seoul Colony at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon. 20 massive alien warships had appeared out of nowhere, blocking out the sun with their dark hulls. Every person in the colony stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky with terror in their hearts. Kim Dara was in her office reviewing crop reports when her assistant burst through the door, face pale with fear. "Colony leader, we have a situation. Alien ships, lots of them." Dara's stomach dropped. She had been the colony leader for 5 years now, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. New Seoul Colony was just a small farming settlement with barely 8,000 people. They had no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back against an alien invasion. She rushed to the communications center where her technical team was already trying to contact Earth for help. The nearest military base was 6 months away by the fastest ship. They were completely alone. "Are they attacking?" Dara asked, watching the massive ships through the window. "No," replied her communications officer, Yoon Ji-soo. "That's the strange part. They're just waiting." For 2 hours, the alien fleet hung in the sky like dark clouds. The colonists gathered in the main square, holding their children close, and wondering if these were their last moments. Some people were crying, others were praying. A few were trying to pack their most important belongings, though there was nowhere to run. Then something unexpected happened. Jisoo's communication equipment started beeping with an incoming message, but instead of demands for surrender, what came through was something else entirely. A female voice speaking perfect Korean filled the colony's speakers. The voice was strange, beautiful but otherworldly, like music played on instruments humans had never heard. "People of New Seoul Colony," the voice said. "I am Queen Nixara of the Kethmori Empire. I come in peace, seeking information about someone who was very important to me long ago." The colonists looked at each other in confusion. This wasn't how alien invasions were supposed to work, the Queen's voice continued. 30 years ago, on Earth's mining moon, a human child helped me when I was lost and frightened. He was 7 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle heart. He shared his food with me, bandaged my wounds and stayed with me when I was scared. I never learned his full name, but I remember he told me to call him Jiho. Dara felt like someone had hit her with lightning. Her hands started shaking and she had to sit down in the nearest chair. I have searched the galaxy for 3 decades, Queen Nixara's voice went on. I have a debt to repay. If anyone in your colony knew this boy, or knows what happened to him, please respond. I promise you have nothing to fear from me or my ships. The communication center went completely silent. Every person there was staring at Dara, whose face had gone white as paper. Colony leader? Jisoo whispered. Do you know something about this? Dara's mind was racing back to her childhood. Her father used to tell her the most amazing bedtime stories about his adventures as a young boy. Her favorite was about the time he found a hurt alien girl in the old mining tunnels and took care of her for 3 days. She always thought it was just a made-up story to teach her about being kind to strangers. My father, she said quietly, her voice barely audible. My father's name was Park Jiho. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Everyone knew about colony leader Kim's father. He had been one of the first settlers, a man known throughout the colony for his kindness and wisdom. He had passed away just 2 years ago, but his teachings about treating everyone with respect still guided the colony's daily life. Dara stood up on shaky legs and walked to the communication console. Her hands trembled as she reached for the microphone that would connect her to the alien queen waiting in the sky above. This was either the most wonderful coincidence in the universe or the most dangerous trap her colony had ever faced. Dara's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she pressed the communication button. Her voice came out as barely a whisper at first. Your Majesty, she said, then cleared her throat and tried again. This is Kim Dara, leader of New Soul Colony. I think you're looking for my father. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Everyone in the communication center held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. When Queen Nixara's voice came back, it was different, softer, almost like she was crying. Your father, the Queen repeated slowly. Tell me about him. His name was Park Jiho, Dara said, feeling braver now. He told me stories when I was little, stories about finding a hurt alien girl in some old mining tunnels. He said she had skin like broken glass and 4 arms. He said he took care of her for 3 days until her family came to get her. There was another long silence. Then the Queen asked, would you be willing to meet with me? Just you and me, face to face. I have so many questions. Dara looked around. At her frightened colonists. Some were shaking their heads, warning her not to trust the alien queen. Others were nodding, encouraging her to take the risk. Her heart was pounding, but she knew what her father would have done. Yes, she said, but I want to bring something to show you first. An hour later, Dara walked toward the landing pad where the Queen's personal shuttle had touched down. In Marseille, her backpack, she carried her father's most precious belongings, 3 old journals and a box of childhood drawings he had saved for over 40 years. Queen Nixara stepped out of her shuttle, and Dara had to fight the urge to run away. The alien. Queen was beautiful but terrifying. She was 8 feet tall with skin that looked like living purple crystal. Her forearms moved gracefully as she walked, and her eyes glowed like stars. But when their eyes met, Dara saw something that made her relax. The Queen looked nervous too. You have his eyes, Queen Nixara said softly. The same kind eyes. They sat together on a bench in the colony's central park. Dara opened the first journal with trembling fingers. The pages were yellow and fragile, filled with her father's careful handwriting. He wrote in these journals every day from the time he was 7 years old, Dara explained. My grandmother gave him the first one for his birthday. She found the right page and began to read aloud. Day 847. Found something amazing in the old tunnels today. A girl, but not like any girl I've ever seen. She's hurt bad and really scared. Mum always says we should help people who need help, so I'm going to take care of her. Queen Nixara's crystalline skin began to glow brighter as she listened. Dara turned the page. Day 848, the crystal girl is still hurt, but she ate some of my sandwich today. She makes pretty singing sounds when she's not crying. I think she's trying to say thank you. Day 849. Big ships came from the sky today. and took the crystal girl away. She looked back at me and touched her heart. I think that means she'll remember me. I hope she has a good life with her family. By now, tears were flowing down the Queen's face, glowing like liquid starlight. There's more, Dara said gently. She opened the box and pulled out faded drawings on old paper. 7-year-old Jiho had drawn pictures of his new friend with crayons, a tall figure with forearms, purple skin, and a sad but grateful expression. He kept these his whole life, Dara said. Even when he got married, even when he became a grandfather, he would show them to us kids and tell us that somewhere in the stars there was a friend who remembered his kindness. Queen Nixara picked up one of the drawings with careful hands. In the corner, young Jiho had written in shaky letters, "My space friend. I hope she's happy." He founded this colony, Dara continued. He spent his whole life teaching people that it doesn't matter where someone comes from or what they look like. What matters is how you treat them. He died 2 years ago, but he lived a good long life. He had children and grandchildren who all loved him very much. The Queen held the drawing against her heart and closed her eyes. "He saved my life," she whispered, "and now I know he lived a life worthy of that gift." The next morning, Dara led Queen Nixara through the winding paths of Harmony Gardens, the colony's most peaceful place. Word had spread quickly through New Seoul Colony about their unusual visitor. Hundreds of colonists lined the walkways, watching in amazement as their leader walked side by side with an alien queen. Children peeked out from behind their parents, pointing at the Queen's glowing purple skin and 4 graceful arms. Instead of fear, their faces showed curiosity and wonder. Some even waved shyly when the Queen smiled at them. "My father designed these gardens himself," Dara explained, as they walked past rows of earth flowers mixed with colorful alien plants. He said gardens should bring different species together, just like communities should bring different people together. Queen Nixara stopped walking and touched one of the strange blue flowers with her fingertip. "This is a Zelonian peace lily," she said in surprise. "They only grow on worlds in my empire. How did he get seeds?" "A refugee ship crash-landed here 15 years ago," Dara replied. "The passengers were from your part of the galaxy. Most colonies would have turned them away, but Dad insisted we help them. They gave him those seeds as a thank-you gift." The Queen's skin glowed brighter. Even as an adult, Jiho had continued helping lost travelers, just like he had helped her all those years ago. They reached the memorial section of the gardens, where smooth stone markers honored the colony's founders and heroes. Jiho's memorial stood in the center, surrounded by a circle of his favorite flowers. It wasn't fancy, just a simple granite stone with words carved deep into its surface. Queen Nixara read the inscription aloud. "Park Jiho, beloved father, grandfather, and friend to all." He saw friends where others saw enemies. Below the words was a small carving of 2 hands reaching toward each other, one human, one clearly alien with 4 fingers instead of 5. "He asked for that symbol before he died," Dara said softly. "He said it represented the most important lesson he ever learned, that friendship has no boundaries." The Queen knelt down beside the memorial, her 4 hands pressed against the cool stone. For a long moment she said nothing. The gardens were so quiet that even the birds seemed to be listening. "I became a queen when I was 16, she finally said. "My people expected me to be like the rulers before me, hard, cold, focused only on power and conquest. But I kept thinking about your father, about how he chose to help me when he could have walked away." Dara sat down on the grass beside her. "He used to say that the bravest thing anyone can do is be kind to someone who's different from them. I tried to rule the way he would have wanted," the Queen continued. "Instead of just taking what we needed from other worlds, I started making alliances. Instead of forcing smaller species to obey us, I offered them protection in exchange for friendship. My advisors thought I was weak, but our empire became stronger than ever." She pulled a small crystal from her robes and placed it on top of the memorial stone. The crystal began to glow with soft purple light. "This is a memory crystal from my home world," she explained. "It will preserve the story of what your father did for me. Future generations will know that a 7-year-old human boy taught an alien queen how to lead with compassion." More colonists had gathered around the memorial now, drawn by the gentle light of the crystal. Parents lifted their children so they could see better. Elderly colonists wiped tears from their eyes as they remembered their old friend Jiho. "He would have loved this," said an old man named Choi Bong-soo, who had been Jiho's best friend. He always said that kindness was like planting seeds. You might not see the results right away, but eventually they grow into something beautiful. Queen Nixara stood up and turned to face the crowd of humans surrounding her. "Your colony leader was more than a friend to one lost child," she announced. "He was a teacher who showed me that true strength comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. Because of him, millions of beings across the galaxy live in peace instead of war." A little girl named Park Sujin pushed through the crowd and tugged on the Queen's robes. "Are you really from outer space?" she asked. The Queen knelt down to the child's level, her stern expression melting into a warm smile. "I am. And do you know what? Your grandfather would be very proud of this colony. You're all carrying on his work of making friends with visitors from far away." As the sun began to set over New Sol Colony, Queen Nixara placed one final gift. Beside the memorial, a small plant with silver leaves that would bloom once a year with flowers that looked like tiny stars. "Thank you, old friend," she whispered to the stone. "Your kindness changed the universe." That evening, Dara invited Queen Nixara to dinner at her family home. The small house was filled with warm light and the smell of traditional Korean cooking. Photos covered the walls, pictures of Jiho at different stages of his life, always smiling, always surrounded by friends and family. "Tell me more about what he did after that day in the tunnels," the Queen asked, as they sat at the kitchen table. "I want to understand how that one moment changed his life." Dara poured tea for both of them, her hands steady now that she'd gotten used to her extraordinary guest. "Dad never forgot you," she began. "When he grew up and went to university, he studied something called xenobiology, the science of alien life forms. He wanted to be ready if he ever met another visitor from space." She pulled out a thick folder from a nearby shelf. "These are all his research papers. He spent years writing about how humans should approach first contact with alien species. Look at this one." The Queen leaned forward as Dara opened to a page titled "Building Bridges Across the Stars, a Protocol for Peaceful First Contact." "He wrote this when he was only 22, Dara explained. "It became required reading at Earth's Diplomatic Academy. The basic idea was simple: treat every new species like you would want to be treated if you were lost and scared on their world." Queen Nixara's skin began to glow as she read Jiho's words. "Fear is the enemy of understanding. When we meet beings different from ourselves, our first instinct might be to run or fight. But if we can push past that fear and offer kindness instead, we open the door to friendship and learning. The Earth government adopted his protocols 20 years ago," Dara continued. "Every human colony uses them now. That's why New Sol became a sanctuary colony." "A sanctuary colony?" the Queen asked. "A safe place for refugees from anywhere in the galaxy," Dara explained proudly. "Over the past 15 years, we've welcomed visitors from dozens of different worlds. Some were running from wars, others were exploring scientists whose ships broke down, a few were just lost like you were." She stood up and walked to a large photo on the wall. It showed hundreds of beings, humans mixed with creatures that looked nothing like them. There were tall blue people with 6 legs, small furry beings, with big eyes, and others that seemed to be made of living metal. "This was taken at last year's Harvest Festival," Dara said. "Every species in the photo is now a permanent resident of New Sol Colony. We have the most diverse population of any human settlement in known space." The Queen stared at the photo in amazement. "How do you make it work? So many different species with different needs." "Dad's teachings," Dara replied simply. "He set up what we call the Welcome Protocol. When new refugees arrive, we don't ask where they came from or why they're running. We ask what they need to feel safe and how we can help. Food, shelter, medical care, whatever it takes." She pointed to different faces in the photo. "See that family of crystal beings? They're from the Andorian system. Their homeworld was destroyed by a solar flare 3 years ago. The metal people? They're artificial intelligences whose creators tried to shut them down. The furry ones are peaceful traders whose ship was attacked by pirates." "And they all lived together in harmony?" the Queen asked, struggling to believe it. "It wasn't easy." "At first," Dara admitted. Different species have different customs, different foods, different ways of communicating. But Dad always said that problems are just puzzles waiting to be solved with creativity and patience. She pulled out another folder. Look at this. It's our integration handbook. Every new resident gets a copy, and every human family gets one. 2. It explains how to be respectful of other cultures while sharing your own. The Queen flipped through pages showing pictures of mixed-species families celebrating holidays together, alien children playing human games, and humans learning to cook foods from distant worlds. Your father didn't just save one alien child, Queen Nixara said quietly. He created a whole new way for species to live together. The funny thing is, he never thought it was special, Dara laughed. Whenever reporters came to interview him about the colony's success, he would just shrug and say he was doing what any decent person would do. He truly believed that kindness was normal, not extraordinary. The Queen set down her teacup and looked directly at Dara. I came here thinking I owed a debt to one man. Now I understand that your father's gift to the universe was much bigger than saving my life. He proved that cooperation between species isn't just possible, it's beautiful. Outside the window, the lights of New Sol Colony twinkled in the darkness. Human homes sat next to alien dwellings, all part of the same peaceful community. Children's laughter echoed from the playground, where species that had never met before, Jiho's vision now played together under the same stars. He would be so happy to know you found us, Dara said softly, and he would be even happier to know that his kindness to you helped create peace across your empire. The next morning, Queen Nixara called for a colony-wide assembly in New Sol's main square. Word spread quickly, and soon thousands of colonists gathered under the morning sun. Families sat on blankets while children played at their feet. Even the alien refugees living in the colony came to see what the Queen would announce. Dara stood beside the Queen on a small wooden platform that served as the colony's speaking stage. Her heart was racing, but she tried to look calm for her. People, citizens of New Sol Colony, Queen Nixara began, her voice carrying clearly across the crowd. Yesterday I came here as a stranger, searching for answers about my past. Today I stand before you as a friend who has found something far more valuable than I expected. The crowd murmured with curiosity. Some people were still nervous about having an alien fleet in their sky, but most seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. Your colony represents everything I believe the future should look like, the Queen continued. Different species living together, sharing knowledge, helping each other grow stronger. This is not just a human settlement. It's proof that the dream of galactic peace can become reality. She gestured toward her ships hanging in the sky above them. I am offering New Sol Colony the full protection of the Kethmori Empire. Any force that threatens you will answer to me personally. Crowd erupted in surprised chatter. Protection from one of the galaxy's most powerful empires? It seemed too good to be true. But that's not all, Queen Nixara said, raising her voice above the noise. I want to propose something that has never happened before in this sector of space. A formal alliance between humans and the Kethmori Empire. A treaty that will open the door for trade, cultural exchange, and joint exploration of the stars. Colony leader Dara stepped forward to address her people. This is an incredible opportunity, she said, but it's also a big decision that will affect all our lives. We need to discuss this together and vote as a community. An elderly woman in the crowd raised her hand. What would this alliance mean for us practically? Would we have to change how we live? Queen Nixara smiled. You wouldn't have to change anything. Your colony already embodies the values we want to spread across the galaxy. Instead, we would learn from you. Your methods of peaceful integration, your refugee protocols, your approach to solving conflicts. These are things my empire needs to study and adopt. A young man called out, What about our independence? Would we still govern ourselves? Absolutely, the Queen replied. New Sol Colony would remain completely self-governing. We would simply be allies, friends who help each other when needed. Lee. Taman, the colony's chief engineer, stood up in the middle of the crowd. He was a quiet man who usually avoided public speaking, but today he looked excited. Your Majesty, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I've been studying the technical specifications your people shared with us yesterday. If we combine human, Engineering with Kethmori technology, we could solve some major problems. What kind of problems? Dara asked. Tamin pulled out a tablet and showed everyone a holographic display. Our biggest challenge has always been terraforming, making our harsh environment more livable. We've been working on it for years, but progress is slow. He tapped the tablet, and the hologram changed to show a beautiful green landscape. With Kethmori atmospheric processes combined with our soil cultivation techniques, we could transform this entire planet in less than 2 years. Instead of just surviving here, we could create a paradise. The crowd began talking excitedly among themselves. The idea of turning their dusty, difficult world into a garden planet was beyond their wildest dreams. There's more, Tamin continued, getting bolder as he spoke. Kethmori medical technology could help us treat diseases we've never been able to cure. Their communication systems could connect us instantly with Earth and other human colonies. Their transportation technology could cut travel time across the galaxy by 90%. An alien refugee from the Zelonian system stood up, speaking in accented but clear Korean. "This queen speaks truth," she said. "Kethmori Empire treat my people with respect when we had nowhere else to go. They are good allies." More refugees began nodding and voicing their agreement. They had first-hand experience with the Queen's empire and could vouch for her character. Queen Nixara listened to all the questions and concerns with patience. Finally, she said, "I propose we name this alliance the Jiho Accords, in honor of the man whose kindness started everything. Let his spirit of compassion guide how our species work together." The mention of Jiho's name brought tears to many eyes. The beloved colony founder had always dreamed of a day when humans and aliens would be true partners among the stars. Dara called for a preliminary vote. All in favor of beginning formal negotiations for the Jiho Accords? Thousands of hands shot up across the square. The vote was nearly unanimous. As the crowd began to disperse, buzzing with excitement about the future, Queen Nixara pulled Tamin aside. "Would you be willing to lead the joint technology project?" she asked. "I think you understand both our species well enough to make this work." Tamin's eyes went wide. "Me? But I'm just a small-town engineer." "So was the man who inspired all of this," the Queen replied with a smile. "Sometimes the biggest changes start with ordinary people doing extraordinary things." 3 weeks after the Jiho Accords were signed, the first Kethmori atmospheric processors arrived on massive cargo ships. The machines looked like giant silver towers with spinning rings around their middle sections. When they were activated, they hummed with a deep musical sound that could be felt in your chest. Lee Tamin stood in the colony's command center, watching dozens of monitors that showed readings from all across the planet. His hands shook with excitement as the numbers on his screens began to change. "Oxygen levels are increasing," he announced to the crowd of colonists and Kethmori technicians gathered around him. "Atmospheric pressure is stabilizing. Temperature regulation is working perfectly." Outside the command center windows, the colonists could see the first signs of change. The red dust storms that had plagued New Sol colony for years were clearing up. The sky was turning from its usual brownish color to a soft blue that reminded the older colonists of Earth. Choimina pressed her face against the window, hardly believing what she was seeing. At 24 years old, she had lived on this harsh planet her entire life. She had never seen clouds form naturally in their sky before. "Look!" she shouted, pointing upward. "Real clouds!" Everyone rushed to the windows. High above them, white puffy clouds were gathering for the first time in the colony's 15-year history. Some of the children had never seen real clouds except in pictures from Earth. But the atmospheric processes were just the beginning. Queen Nixara had also brought soil regeneration units, smaller machines that looked like metal spiders. They crawled across the barren ground, injecting special nutrients and bacteria that would help plants grow. Within a week, tiny green shoots began poking up through the dusty soil. Kim Hajin, the colony's head farmer, walked through the fields, with tears streaming down his face. 40 years I've been trying to grow decent crops in this dirt," he said to his assistant. "Now look at this. Grass. Real grass growing wild, just like it should." The transformation wasn't just happening in the farmlands. All around the colony, the landscape was changing. Dead riverbeds began flowing with clean water. Rocky hillsides sprouted with colorful wildflowers. The air began to smell fresh and sweet instead of dusty and metallic. Queen Nixara had decided to stay on the planet to oversee the project personally. She established a temporary embassy in what used to be the colony's unused warehouse district. The building was quickly converted into a beautiful complex with gardens that showcased plants from both human and Kethmori worlds. "We need someone to serve as our cultural liaison," the Queen told Dara during one of their daily meetings. "Someone who understands both species and can help us work together smoothly." Dara immediately thought of Choi Mina. The young woman had been fascinated by the Kethmori visitors from day one. She spent her free time learning their language and customs, and the aliens seemed to genuinely enjoy her company. "Mina has a gift for bringing people together," Dara explained. Even as a child, she was always the one who helped solve arguments between the different refugee groups. When they offered her the position, Mina couldn't believe it. "You want me to be the first human Kethmori diplomat? But I don't have any formal training." "Neither did your colony's founder when he helped a scared alien child, Queen Nixara," replied with a smile. "Sometimes the best diplomats are people who simply care about others." Mina's first official act was organizing a cultural exchange festival. Human families invited Kethmori visitors into their homes for traditional Korean meals. In return, the aliens shared their music, art, and stories from across the galaxy. The festival took place in the colony's main square, which was now surrounded by newly grown trees and flower gardens. Children ran between booths selling food from a dozen different worlds. Kethmori musicians played hauntingly beautiful songs, while human dancers performed traditional Korean folk dances. "This is incredible," said Park Dongwoo, an elderly colonist who remembered the early days when they struggled just to survive. "When we first came here, this place was nothing but rocks and dust. Now it looks like paradise." His granddaughter, 8-year-old Park Yuna, was playing with a young Kethmori child who had arrived with the embassy staff. They were building a sandcastle together, chattering in a mix of Korean and the aliens' musical language. "Grandpa," Yuna called out, "Zelnara says her people have 3 moons on their homeworld. Can we visit sometime?" Dongwoo laughed and wiped his eyes. "Maybe someday, little one. Who knows what's possible now?" The most dramatic change came exactly 1 month after the processors were installed. That morning, the colonists woke up to something none of them had ever experienced on their planet: rain. Soft, warm raindrops fell from grey clouds, soaking into the ground and making everything smell like growth and possibilities. People ran outside, dancing and laughing, as they felt real rain on their faces for the first time. Mina stood in the embassy courtyard with Queen Nixara, both of them getting soaked but not caring at all. "Jiho would have loved this," Mina said, catching raindrops on her tongue like a child. "He's here with us," the Queen replied, her crystalline skin glowing bright with happiness. "Every time someone chooses kindness over fear, every time different. Species work together instead of fighting. That's his legacy living on." As the rain continued to fall, washing away the last traces of the old harsh world, the colonists began to truly understand what their future could hold. 6 months after the transformation began, New Sol Colony looked like a completely different world. What was once a dusty, struggling settlement had become a thriving garden planet. Green forests covered the hills, clear rivers flowed through the valleys, and the air was so clean and sweet that taking a deep breath felt like a gift. Queen Nixara stood in the colony's central park, looking at the paradise that had grown around them. Her work here was nearly finished. The embassy was running smoothly under Choi Mina's leadership. The atmospheric processors had done their job perfectly, and the alliance between humans and the Kethmori Empire was stronger than anyone had dared to hope. But before she left, there was one last thing she needed to do. "I have brought something special from my homeworld," she announced to the crowd of colonists who had gathered to say goodbye. In her 4 hands, she carried a crystal seed that looked like a small star captured in glass. "This is a memory crystal," she explained, kneeling beside Jiho's memorial stone. "When planted, it will grow into a living monument that preserves important stories for thousands of years. It will tell the tale of a human boy who saved an alien girl, and how that act of Kindness changed the fate of 2 entire civilizations. She pressed the crystal seed into the soft earth next to the memorial. As soon as it touched the ground, the crystal began to glow with a warm, pulsing light. Tiny roots made of pure energy spread out from its base, and a stem of living light began to grow upward. The colonists watched in amazement as the crystal monument slowly took shape. It grew into a beautiful tree-like structure, with branches that sparkled like stars. Each branch held a glowing orb that showed moving pictures, scenes from Jiho's life, moments from Queen Nixara's childhood, images of the colony's transformation, and visions of the peaceful future they were building together. "It's beautiful," whispered Park Yuna, the little girl who had become best friends with the young Kethmori children at the embassy. "It looks like it's made of dreams." "In a way it is," Queen Nixara replied, smiling down at the child. "It's made of the dream that different species can live together in peace." As the crystal tree continued to grow, a gentle sound began to fill the air, a melody that seemed to combine human music with the harmonic tones of Kethmori communication. The tree was already beginning its work, broadcasting the story of friendship across space for anyone who might be listening. Lee Taemin, now the Chief Technology Officer for the Human Kethmori Alliance, ran up with his tablet showing readings from their communication array. "Your Majesty," he said excitedly, "we're already receiving responses. Ships from 12 different star systems are asking for more information about the Jiho Accords. 3 species want to send diplomatic envoys to learn about our integration methods." Queen Nixara nodded with satisfaction. "The story is spreading just as it should. Your father's kindness is inspiring others to choose cooperation over conflict." Dara stepped forward, her eyes bright with tears of joy rather than sadness. He always believed that small actions could make big changes. He just never imagined his small action would change the entire galaxy. "The monument will broadcast our story for the next 1,000 years, the Queen explained. "Future generations will know that peace between species is possible because they'll have proof that it works. Children who haven't even been born yet will grow up in a universe where friendship across the stars is normal instead of miraculous." Choi Mina approached with a data pad in her hands. "I've been working on the official embassy report," she said. "In just 6 months, we've had visitors from 47 different worlds. 15 new species have applied to join the alliance, and most importantly, we haven't had a single major conflict or misunderstanding. That's because you learned from the best teacher," Queen Nixara said, gesturing toward Jiho's memorial. "He showed us that the secret to getting along isn't complicated technology or complex treaties. It's simply choosing to see others as friends instead of enemies." As the sun began to set over New Sol Colony, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink that the colonists had never seen before the atmospheric transformation, Queen Nixara prepared to board her ship for the journey home. The entire colony gathered to see her off. Humans stood next to aliens from dozens of different worlds, all of them united in friendship. Children waved colorful banners, while adults applauded and cheered. Queen Nixara took Dara's hands in all 4 of her own. "I came here to repay a debt to one man," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "Now I understand that the debt was much bigger than I realized. Your father didn't just save one lost alien child. He saved 2 entire civilizations from centuries of war and fear." "How do you know that?" Dara asked. The Queen smiled and pointed to the crystal monument, which was now tall enough to be seen from anywhere in the colony. Its branches swayed gently in the evening breeze, and its story globes pulsed with warm light. "Because every species that sees this story will have to ask themselves one question," she said. "If a 7-year-old human boy could choose kindness over fear, what excuse do the rest of us have for choosing differently?" As Queen Nixara's ship lifted off into the star-filled sky, the crystal monument continued to grow and sing its message, of hope across the galaxy. In the years to come, that message would inspire countless other species to lay down their weapons and extend their hands in friendship instead. And somewhere among the stars, the spirit of Park Jiho smiled, knowing that his simple act of childhood kindness had finally come home.